I don't think just okay, cool.
Testing, testing. Can everyone hear me online? Okay, all right.
Perfect. All right, so I think we're back on track with the Zoom. The minutes, our agenda is up there. So today we're going to do our commencement speaker auditions and our commencement speaker voting. Teresa, do you want to explain this or would you like me to? Cool. So Teresa is going to explain what we're doing for our first agenda.
Okay.
If you'd like the mic, you're welcome to grab it. Just watch out for the cord.
Let's go with that. Okay, so for those of you who haven't been a part of this process before, every year the GSC gets to select one master's student to speak at the master's commencement ceremony and one PhD student to speak at the doctoral commencement ceremony. Over the last month, the nominations committee has been involved in seeking and selecting 3 finalists from each group who will be presenting proposals of their speeches for you today. And you guys all get to vote on who is going to be the speaker. What we're going to do is we're first going to have the 3 master's students present their proposed speeches. The full speeches are about 10 minutes long. So each student is only going to give you about 5 minutes of their speech, either an excerpt or a summary of the overall points. And once all 3 of them have gone, we'll have a vote and then we'll repeat for the PhD students. Sound good? Awesome. All right.
Can I just make one clarifying point? So the people who are, I'm gonna go, I think can everyone hear me okay if I go without the mic? Okay, cool. Hopefully online too. If you can't, let me know. The people who are eligible to vote for this are departmental representatives. So if you're here representing your department as a departmental representative, you can vote. Otherwise, you're just going to be here to observe with the rest of us, which is a lot of fun too. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. All right. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started with the master's students. Oh, wait.
Quick question. Sure. I'm an engineering GSC department. I just want to check if there's another engineering department. I will
That's yeah, you know, I think that you're entitled to your vote as the departmental representative. And so, yeah, so, yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Cool.
There's a question from the Zoom. How can reps online vote?
So online, we're going to be having a poll. This is my first time ever launching a Zoom poll. We're going to start with the master students. And once we're finished, I will launch the Zoom poll and you can get one vote. If we have technical difficulties, please have a little grace. I'm learning. So.
All right. Last check. Any other questions? Zoom, in person, anybody? Going once. Going twice. So, all right, Matthew, you're up first. Ready?
microphone or is it?
If you're soft-spoken, I'd suggest the microphone, but if you think you can project, it's good.
Let me know if you can't hear me, and I'll drop the microphone. Hello, my name is Matthew Buck. I'm in the Master of Public Affairs program. Let me start by giving you a summary of my speech before diving into an abridged version of what I've written. There are three things I'm going to talk about: forgiveness, imagination, and curiosity. Just for my speech is that these are three tools we can use to understand ourselves, our place in the world, and the state of the world itself. Forgiveness, the first point, is more about looking back and understanding the past. So I will use that section to reflect on our time of ground and try to create a momentary loop of nostalgia. Imagination and curiosity, on the other hand, are more forward and future. And in that section, I've integrated some poetry and quotes from science fiction, specifically the author Ursula Le Guin. So here's what. When I came to trial, I did not hesitate to look out with bright eyes and find myself in front of those valleys and ideals I hold close. However, I did not see the person holding me. It took me a moment to realize that I am who I myself to be. And so over my time at the home, I worked on forgiving my insecurity, anxiety, imposter syndrome, and feeling that although I was in the room, I wasn't quite there. Or we laughed at the abundance of free tickets to grad student council Peruvians. We may be small people sharing small moments, but I'm glad I shared them with you. Forgiveness does not mean being less than justice, but it is a fair bargain to make peace with our circumstances. So as we now emerge from our shared experience into a world that teases conflict and division, it's worth forgiving and cheering on ourselves and the strangers around us.
All right, a quick interjection. I don't want to interrupt your flow. A lot of people on the Zoom are having a hard time hearing, and since they could be voting for you, just want to make sure that that is a possibility for them to hear you.
Sure. Now, if I were humble, I'd end my speech here, but I'm more sad. The next thing I'd like to talk about is imagination. If it is the case that we're emerging into a chaotic world, what does it look like? Nestled between a nuclear world war in the past and a cataclysmic ecological collapse in the future, I think we find ourselves in a golden valley of opportunity. Perhaps I'm being imaginative or optimistic, but wouldn't you know it, that was the whole point. Imagination invites us to explore new perspectives, to ask how our neighbor or an alien from space would see the world. It means stepping back from our usual thoughts and imaginations and find the beauty in the things that we find distasteful. Imagination is, therefore, an act of rebellion against individualism and the economist's society. Imagination is also a core aspect. Forgiveness, imagination, and curiosity are not just tools for our inner realization and becoming whole, but also tools for rebellion, to liberate our whole realized selves. I could go on a whole other rant about tools seem to be trapped behind digital glass walls. But for now, let me make one loud proclamation. Release the creative beasts. And of course, happy graduation. Depending on how things pan out, I'm open to inserting some poetry I've written myself, but all that's still like a work in progress. So I'm not included for this part.
Thank you very much. So we're having slight difficulties online trying to find the perfect position for the speaker to speaker interaction. And so I think we fixed it. Like people were saying it's better now.
People are saying they can hear us online. I'm gonna try quickly turning it on and off again because that usually helps.
Yes.
1 second.
I think if you like blow in it too, like a Nintendo cartridge.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, I'm dating myself.
We get a different one of these every time, so you know. Let's see. Should probably get our own at this point. Okay. It says it's charging. Okay. People online? Give me like a 1 to 10. All right. So I'm gonna rotate to the speaker position to make sure. Oh, hello.
What if we keep the one of the laptops?
I'm gonna rotate just to the speaker position to make sure you can still hear me. Let me. Hang on, it's plugged into the TV this way.
So this is about as far as.
That's this guy. So the light being blue here indicates that the moving the table might have fixed it. So I'm just going to rotate real quick.
Well done, engineering.
Yeah, that's
Your
right.
master's
People online, can you hear me well now?
even better.
Are they saying yes or no on the chat?
That's right.
You can hear me well with better fidelity than just a moment ago?
I want to say yes.
Wonderful. Okay, that did it. Excellent.
I think the problem was it was like cutting out, we thought the distance, but I think that thing was malfunctioning. So we're
So
gonna.
we would love to give that a take two, just to make sure that all the voting members can get a fair understanding of everything.
Yes.
It was very good though. Just want to make sure.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll cycle to the next person, let you breathe real quickly, and then if that's okay, and if it happens to you, which hopefully it won't, at least we'll level the playing field. So let's ask our tech chair, what do you think is best? Do you think standing back here is going to be good, or do you think we should try it again there?
You can stand back here. So the problem is we don't have a really good way to do an angle that fits both the audience and the online in this particular space. If you'd like to stand behind the desk, I would suggest right where our communications chair was for the moment, if that's all right with you. And so if you are right there, the speaker will be broadcasting to the room, and this camera will be hearing you talk here, and we should be good across the board. So let me just speak in behind you there.
Our online,
Just gonna come behind you towards Alex for a minute real quick, and then if anyone has any problems, they can.
Do you want us? I don't want to argue. You just-
I'll move that.
Can you hear me? Or,
Oh, this has to be turned back on real quick. Okay.
hello?
okay, so let's do a couple check 1, 2s, maybe.
Can you hear me?
some
Check
vocal
1, 2.
exercises.
It's so nice to See faces. It's been so long. Oh my goodness. Okay.
So you sound underwater,
Oh.
now, so that's a new comment. Distinct from your previous.
Unless it's a
So-
theme for the year.
So how is your projection? What if you did?
Under sound normal, so I think maybe try to have the mic.
Yeah,
Okay.
try, can you project?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me online and can you hear me?
Yeah.
We're good? Okay.
Excellent.
So,
All right.
we're just gonna,
Yeah, being closer to, he said we're.
so just stay
adjusting
here.
that.
Okay, but you can all hear me in the back. Wonderful. Okay, I love to hear it. Okay.
I know, it doesn't make sense.
That's
though.
Yeah, it's set to it, but
Are we
if
ready?
it's
Yeah,
working, it's
all right.
working.
One, two,
Okay.
Let's take our shot.
My name is Soneda. I'm a master's candidate in medical science. And today I'm going to read an excerpt of my speech and then summarize the rest of the details. So let's get started. Now, I consider myself a pretty optimistic person, but few things challenge every ounce of positivity in my body more than the line, "I hope this email finds you well." The reason for that lies in the fact that we know things are anything but well in the world. In fact, if insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, the world seems downright maddening these days. Everyone always hopes their email finds us well, but it never does. Amidst the celebration of graduation, positivity may come easy, but maintaining this positive outlook with the weight of so many historical events unraveling before us feels like an improbable task. So like me, you're probably thinking, what on earth is the point of trying to maintain any hope? To say that positivity is a limited resource nowadays is to use that term generously. Optimism just might be the only thing on our warming planet that's drying out faster than water, depleting quicker than fossil fuels, and melting quicker than the ice caps. And yet today and every day, we need to commit to preserving every ounce of it. Contrary to Emily Dickerson's belief, optimism is not just the thing with feathers, nor is it an intrinsic trait. It is a catalyst for opportunity, not just for ourselves, but for others. As master students who have carefully polished our skills and craft over the last few months, optimism remains our best chance at using our expertise to break the cycles of insanity in the world. Optimism is a habit, a muscle, a seed we can sow. Even if you're like me and you're convinced yourself that positivity does not come naturally to you, by committing to the habits of connectivity, accountability, and mentorship, we can grow it. If we start with the roots of optimism are connectivity. It's no secret that the problems we face as a city, a country, a globe are intricately intertwined. Crises as complex as climate change, forced displacement, or pandemics cannot be solved in a vacuum. They demand solutions at the intersection of seemingly siloed fields of study. Remaining optimistic requires embracing this complexity by connecting with people across professions, backgrounds, and cultures. Whether we are most at home at the lab bench, an office desk, or theater, we must resist the urge to share our insights only with colleagues who mirror our expertise. We are perfectly poised to generate new hope and push the boundaries of our fields. Through connectivity, we can ask how policy professionals can learn from arts and theater, or how artists can learn from biotechnology and engineering. What greater source of optimism than to know the limits of our professions are just a suggestion. That is the end of my excerpt, but I will go on to depict other habits. In whatever community we occupy, accountability is a habit of optimism that requires consistently asking ourselves and our community members what barriers to autonomy and health exist and what can be done to address them. Doing so generates not only newfound hope, but new opportunity. A few months ago, a simple question about gaps in Rhode Island public health led to an interview with a professor on the front lines of the pandemic. This generated new volunteer opportunities for my peers and I, and an expansion of our community's social safety net. Finally, I'll describe mentorship as a habit of inspiring others to envision a career trajectory bolder than our own. A year ago, I had no plan, no home, no job, I know I'm not the only one here today that can trace their remarkable path to Brown back to an unwavering support of mentors. We are all living proof that through mentorship, our optimism and impact will echo for generations. Throughout my speech, I will celebrate the wide variety of master programs here and share my experience as a Black Hispanic woman in STEM. And ultimately, I will end with this sentiment. We all came here as students, but it's important to remember we leave here as catalysts for change with the right habits. We don't need any email to ever find us well. We just need to find our optimism, not in our words, not in our thoughts, but in our actions. Today and every day, we need to continue to grow it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Last but certainly not least.
That's what the Matt is gonna go.
Oh.
That's gonna go next.
Okay, Matt's gonna go next. All right, great. So we're gonna give Matt an equalizing opportunity here. So thank you for doing this again. Really appreciate it.
Feel bad about that. So if you want to stand here, we'll just take a quick second, make sure that you're audible to everyone.
Yeah.
Just before you start, we don't have to stop you.
Okay.
Everyone online, could you listen to Matt's read a test sentence just to make sure that this works? You just say anything that comes to mind, anything that.
I'll tell you that poem. Loveliest of trees, the cherry now is hung with blooms along the bough. It stands about the woodland ride, wearing white for Eastertide. Of my 80 years and 10, 20 will not come again. And take from 70 springs a score, it only leaves me 50 more. And since to look at things in bloom, 50 springs. Okay.
I didn't want to stop.
Yeah, you keep going.
Yeah, I was like, weird.
All right.
But back to our regular scheduled program. When you're ready, take it away. Thank you, Matt.
Hello, my name is Matthew Newbacher, and I'm in the Master of Public Affairs program. We'll start by giving a summary of the speech before diving into an abridged version of what I've written. There are 3 things I'm going to talk about: forgiveness, imagination, and curiosity. The gist of my speech is that these are 3 tools we can use to understand ourselves, our place in the world, and the state of the world itself. Forgiveness, the first point, is more about looking back and understanding the past. So I will use that section to reflect on our time at Brown and try to create a moment of a momentary mood of nostalgia. Imagination and curiosity, on the other hand, are more forward-looking. And in that section, I've integrated some poetry and quotes from science fiction, specifically the author Ursula K. Le Guin. So here's what all that may sound like. The first thing I would like to talk about is forgiveness. When I came to Brown, I did not hesitate to look out with bright eyes and define myself in terms of the values and ideals I hold close. However, I did not see the person holding these ideals. It took a moment to realize that I am who I make myself to be. And so over my time at Brown, I've worked on forgiving my insecurity, anxiety, imposter syndrome, and feeling that although I was in the room, I wasn't quite there. So, to everyone I failed to introduce myself to, hi, I'm Matthew, and I'm about to graduate from Brown University with a Master in Public Affairs. I hope that although you do not know me, we shared some good times together. Maybe we took an improv class together, or we laughed at the abundance of drink tickets the Grad Student Council provisioned us. We may be small people sharing small moments, but I'm glad I shared them with you. Forgiveness does not mean being less angry at injustice, but it is a fair bargain to make peace with our circumstances. And as we now emerge from our shared experience into a world teasing conflict and division, it is worth forgiving the tragedies we endured and cheering ourselves and strangers around us. Now, if I were humble, I would end my speech there, but I have more to say. The next thing I'd like to talk about is imagination. If it is the case that we're emerging into a chaotic world, what does this look like? Nestled between a nuclear world war in the past and a cataclysmic ecological collapse in the future, I think we find ourselves in a golden valley of opportunity. Perhaps I'm being optimistic or imaginative, but wouldn't you know it, that was the point all along. Imagination invites us to explore new perspectives, to ask how our neighbor or an alien from space would see the world. It means stepping back from our usual thoughts and machinations and find the beauty in the things we find distasteful. Imagination is, therefore, an act of rebellion against individualism and the economist's assumptions. Imagination is also a core aspect of science fiction. And at this point, I tie in 2 quotes from Ursula Le Guin that help to explain how imagination is a form of rebellion. In addition to sci-fi, I also explored poetry while I worked. Why? Because I was interested in it. The final thing I'd like to talk about is curiosity, which is the final of the 3 tools that will help us to navigate the future. Curiosity is about risk. It is about seeing what is there, or maybe what is not, and endeavoring into this fractal universe to find what is truly casting the shadows on the wall. It manifests the rebellion of the imagination. And so at this point, I insert a very good and very eloquently spoken A. Housman poem about enjoying and appreciating the complexity of nature, called Loveliest of Trees That Shine Now. I also insert a Maya Angelou poem called Caged Bird, that is about a caged bird singing about, quote, things unknown but longed for still. So to sum it all up, forgiveness, imagination, and curiosity are not just tools for our inner realization and becoming whole, but also tools for rebellion to liberate our whole realized selves. I could go on a whole other rant about how these tools seem to be trapped behind digital glass walls. But for now, let me make one loud proclamation. Release the creative beast. And of course, happy graduation. Do they hear me?
Yes.
They loved it.
Okay. For master's students, last but certainly not least, we have Amelia Salter. And take it away, Amelia.
First and foremost, thank you so much to everyone who was on the committee that chose to bring me here. I cannot overstate how much I appreciate the opportunity to be reading this to everyone in this room. It really means a lot. Can you hear me online? Am I good on that front?
Wait 1 second. Yep, you're good.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this. All right, I'm going to be doing this in the reverse order. I'm going to start with an excerpt and then give a little summary of where it would lead. So there is only one, I'm Amelia, and I'm in the Religious Studies Master's Program. There is only one source of knowledge that's taught me more than Brown University over the course of graduate school, and that source is Google. So as we prepare to burst out of the Brown bubble, it is an honor to share with you some of the most relevant things that I have ever Googled. Did you know that one of the most commonly Googled questions is how to boil an egg? It turns out the answer is not actually that obvious. So it's probably a good thing that I'm here. First though, a less common but frankly far more practical Google search result. How to kick out a windshield. I wasn't sure I needed to cover this one because honestly, believe it or not, most of us came to Brown asking ourselves exactly that question. No, not because we were the stars of some fantastic education-themed action movie, but because many of us arrived with ambitious plans and ideas of who we were supposed to be, what we were supposed to do with this opportunity that we worked so hard for, whether that meant eventually becoming a doctor or a lawyer, or more specifically, developing a network of shelters for homeless emancipated minors, or designing data-driven virtual reality experiences to help soothe people in the hospital. Those are both real projects in the works for master's students, well, master's alums now, sitting among us here. Suffice to say, type B can be even more fervently ambitious than type A when B stands for Brown. So we kicked out our mental windshield and created an opening for those dreams to expand. I'll let you in on something. Leaning closer. I almost didn't go to college at all, let alone graduate school with people as smart as you. Are you kidding me? I did not go to high school. I have a GED. I only applied to one graduate program, Brown. And if I didn't get in, at the time I thought when I didn't get in, my plan was, of course, to just start working. See, ever since I realized actors don't just make up their lines as they go along, I have known I was going to be a television writer, which doesn't require college, let alone a graduate degree. I'm still going to work in television, but thanks to what I've learned by watching you, my courageously passionate classmates, I was able to pursue my once impossible dream of graduating today with a degree in religious studies. In contrast, I personally know several members of our cohort who are taking their humanities degrees on over to medical school. Another member of our class is getting a business degree today. She came with tunnel vision for finance and is leaving here one of the country's most promising new elementary school teachers. I've been inspired to try all kinds of previously unimaginable things. I watched you, my peers, kick out those windshields and escape into bigger, better worlds. Point being, take a second, think about who you came to Brown expecting to be and who you're leaving as. Chances are you've already leapt through the opening and are now someplace entirely different and further along than where you had ever gotten in that car to go. But just in case you ever need to break a physical windshield rather than a metaphorical one, let's jump back from Brown on over to Google. It is only if you have no blunt objects in your vehicle to use as a hammer that you should consider kicking out the front windshield. Focus on a windshield rather than a door window. The glass panes and doors sit in slots. So focus your efforts on the windshield. Put as much force as possible into your kick. Give it 2 or 3 direct hits with the flat soles of your feet. Then watch as the glass shatters away. See, at Brown, you learn something new right up to the last hour of the last day. All right, you've broken the windshield. Where do you go from here? Well, another potentially useful thing that I have Googled is countries without extradition treaties with the United States. So, all right, that's the excerpt. Thank you. A quick overview of where that's headed. I know I've got like 30 seconds. I'm going to condense the summary into 30 seconds. So we start with the windshield, which is essentially looking back at the incredible journey that each one of us has taken, which is highly personal to get to this day, because graduation, I understand as someone whose college graduation was taken by COVID and who didn't have high school graduation, it's a very ephemeral collective experience that's really a balance between it being 1,500 some odd people's special day where it's only about them, while simultaneously being, again, a collective experience that we're all sharing as a class where it's the only time that we'll be together. But at the same time, we are from that moment on permanently connected. And I really want to capture that. And then we move on to extradition treaties, which is about the fact that just like someone frantically Googling countries that have extradition treaties, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. This is the day where we have to leave Brown and go somewhere else. And that's a little terrifying, but at the same time, while graduations are sometimes seen as a somber closing of the chapter, I really want to shift that energy towards the exciting new lives that we're starting with these great degrees that we work so hard to have, and get everyone really excited to be walking out of those gates and think about all the great new things that lie ahead, rather than the sad things that we might be leaving behind, and get that optimism going. And finally, we circle back to how to boil an egg. Because it might sound simple, but really it actually is very complicated. And I want every single person in that crowd to feel like this speech talked to them personally, and that they feel seen, heard, and celebrated. Because whether you have 10 people or no people in experience, I really understand waiting for you when you walk out of that gate. I want to be sure that they know that everyone in that crowd is supporting them and understands that they had their own personal experience to get there, and that the global events we've experienced, which I definitely will touch on, impacted us all very differently, and that their experience, even if it seems simple or easy, it was not, no matter who you are, how you got there. And that we leave, feeling reverent with time for reflection, but celebratory and looking not down and back, but forward and ahead. That's where I am on this. Thank you so much.
Is there a full setup?
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. That was a great bundle of talks, and it's going to be difficult to make a decision, I'm sure. So we have an online poll, which I'm going to launch now for our 3 speakers. I'm going to first ask our 3 speakers, if you don't mind, to take a step outside. Mai, would you mind closing the door behind them? Thank you to all. Sorry to kick you out. I already had my pizza. I already had my beer. I need to come back in. Okay, great. So with that, I'm going to launch the Zoom poll. So Zoom folks, I'm going to launch this now. Again, remembering that the eligible voters are departmental representatives. For our first speaker, for those in person, would you? Oh, good. I thought that was showing on the screen. For those in person, our first speaker, Matthew Newbacher. Who went twice.
Yeah.
He was our first speaker and our third speaker technically. For all in favor of Matthew Newbacher, we're gonna vote by hand raising. So anyone in favor, please raise your hand.
Although I think mine's taking it down.
Oh, you're taking it?
But I just want to know what you want to call for the cutoff for time, because like people, like I saw one trickle and we got 17 people responding on.
Perfect. We're just gonna move to the next person. So first, Sonita, all in favor, please show of hands. So we have one in person. And last but not least, Amelia Stalter, all in favor, please show your hands. Keep them high, hold them up, a couple seconds, a little slow to count, not a math major. Yes, yes, representatives, yeah, that's right. Okay. So we have, Amelia Stalter was Victor. If you don't mind asking them back in, and then you can make the announcement if you're comfortable. Great. Thank you, everybody, for participating and dealing with our slow counting. Again, not a math major. So great. Thank you to all of our speakers.
Yeah, I thank all three of you for your wonderful speeches. It was a really tough decision. Congratulations to Amelia Spalter, who is going to be our math.
Wonderful. So for the amazing, everyone, thank you very much. So for the sake of time, we're just going to keep on moving forward. So we're going to move into our PhD equivalent of commencement speakers. First, we will start off with the Cozy Oats, and we will move on from there.
Okay. Just to everyone online, this part of the Zoom recording will be paused, so it will still be broadcast to you to listen to and vote on, but the recording will not feature this segment, just so you know, to be aware for that.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing. Ju Yang, but sorry if I mispronounced your name. Okay, pretty good. I'll take that. So thank you very much, and please introduce yourself and take it away.
Can people in the back hear my voice? Perfect. My name is Joyang Bai. I'm a PhD student in cognitive science. And today I'll present an excerpt, and then I'll briefly summarize what I would say other than the excerpt. Excellent. Many of us have hobbies that keep us going in this marathon. I like riding my bike. I remember when I first started biking here, I got yelled at by a driver on the road. He was telling me to get off the road using the F word. I feel humiliated. And since then, every time I hear a car honking at me or driver yelling at me, I just felt angry and defensive. And I try to block their voice mentally so that I don't feel vulnerable. One day I was driving on the road and saw someone biking on my side. I was thinking, here's my chance to show support to my fellow cyclists. So I rolled down the window and I shouted, "Ale, ale." to cheer him on. However, this is probably the last thing I expected. He flicked his hands in the air and looked at me with a scowl, as if he were saying, "What is wrong with you? What did I do wrong?" The wind was pretty loud at that speed, so he probably thought I'm one of those drivers who hate cyclists and greets them with F words. At that moment, I suddenly thought, was there friendly cheering from drivers that I misinterpreted as hostility? How much positive experience have I missed because of the fear of feeling vulnerable? Looking back in my life and things happening in the world, I realized that the fear of feeling vulnerable has never done good. It makes us shut down the channel of communication and makes us less tolerant to uncertainty and start to perceive others using stereotypes. In many cases, it also leads to aggression and even violence. The pandemic made people feel vulnerable. Then hate crime against Asian communities soared. Maybe some people cannot accept the fact that a virus can still threaten their life in the 21st century. So they use hate to create a narrative to themselves that this is all somebody else's fault. When a person doesn't know how to deal with vulnerability, crime could happen. When a country doesn't know how to deal with vulnerability, more horrible things could happen. In graduate school, we have plenty of opportunities to feel vulnerable. Our work is reviewed by peers, and our performance is evaluated by the university. Not to mention giving presentations at conferences full of critical minds. These opportunities allow me to practice being vulnerable. And in the end, I realized that if I abandon fear and stay true to myself and others, vulnerability eventually leads to courage and strength. Every time I attend dissertation defense, I always show my support to the speaker by giving affirming looks and loud applauses, because I know how much that person has to go through to get on that stage. When I became the person on the stage, I felt the same support from others. Yes, I was nervous, but allowing myself feeling that way reminds me that everyone has been through the same, and I am not alone. Vulnerability connects us because we all have been through tough times. It gave us a foundation to trust and support each other. And that's my excerpt. For other parts in the speech, first I want to reassure that everyone here, you have accomplished a lot, because PhD students, they tend to underestimate their achievements because they always look at the next goals, the next experiments, next achievements. And after these, I want to mention that there are some special difficulties faced by the international students, because many students, especially PhD students, they came from other countries. And some of them are like probably reached their 30s, and they probably feel detached from the rest of the population, student population. And some students are even parents among PhD students. So that's even harder. And in the end, I just want to use some quotes and some encouraging words just to send them out the gate.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing. That was a lot of fun. And last but certainly not least, shoot left.
Thank you. May I move?
Move it away. Get comfortable. Right.
Hey.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So do a couple of check
All
one,
right.
twos, make sure
Mic
our
check, please.
Gonna back
Am I
up, make sure
audible?
you're visible as well.
All right.
And chat is saying sounds good.
Sounds good.
Sounds
All right.
good. Everyone in the back can hear me? Okay, so good evening. My name is Vidushi. I am a final year PhD candidate in chemical, biochemical, and environmental engineering. Quite a mouthful. And today I'm going to be giving not so much an excerpt as much as it is a 5-minute version of a 10-minute speech. So without further ado, the importance of being earnest, the spirit of authenticity from Brown to the world. When I was first accepted at Brown, my mother immediately began to do her reading up on the university. What are the interesting traditions? What are some fun things to do in and around campus? What exactly is Brown all about? Instantly, among the many things that came up, was the midnight Halloween organ recital, and of course, our dearly departed Blue Note. But what I remembered most distinctly was the person who answered the question, what does Brown look for in its students? They answered it as follows. Brown tends to look for people with hobbies and interests and achievements beyond the purely academic. While true for most universities, it seems as though Brown seems to specifically filter for the weirdest possible interests. I remember my mom turned to me and said, oh, no wonder they accepted you. That fits you to a T. Yes, my mother roasts me quite frequently, but she was also right. I was an engineering major who enjoyed the literary arts, was a magazine editor and a trained pianist. Not many transferable skills between those things. But at the time, I didn't take this person very seriously. I was a graduate student applying to a PhD program. I really needed to believe GRE scores still mattered. Now, 5 years later, I realized maybe they weren't so wrong. And having spent half my 20s on this campus, watching people learn and research and create and grow up, I can see the truth to what he said. And therein, I think, lies the strength of this incredible place. Embracing what is weird, embracing what is different, and embracing our authentic selves. There's a certain image people have in mind when you hear the word Ivy League, something I don't have to spell out for anyone here. And yet coming to Brown felt comforting. I realized on my second trip back home to Mumbai that I used to cry on the flight both ways, because coming or going from Brown, I missed a home. I was 21 when I came here, certainly not self-actualized, certainly didn't know what I was doing in the lab. And in many ways, Brown gave me something I was missing out on. It was an elusive something, and I decided that's what I wanted to spell out for the speech. Brown surrounded me with the spirit of authenticity. And a big part of this authenticity, I think, stems from being able to study whatever suits one's fancy. Would this be in a completely different department from one's own or something else? The open curriculum is certainly something I've watched people benefit from immensely while at Brown. But as PhD students, of course, there's pretty minimal course taking. And true enough, I watched one friend carry out ice core sampling in Alaska and have to undertake a training for how to deal with grizzly bears or polar bears that she comes across. I watched another one undertake a 2-month research cruise into the Pacific Ocean in the middle of the pandemic, admittedly, a great time to be out at sea, and then carry out seismic disturbance on the ocean floor. Multidisciplinarity and trying to do weird things is so built into Brown's DNA, it's really hard to imagine this university without it. And so this emphasis on the exchange of ideas lends itself to tremendous on-campus support for events and cross-cultural exchange. The establishment and maintaining of student bodies is something so incredibly relevant to the Brown mission, something everyone here has no doubt had touched their lives in some way or the other. For my own part, my experiences with the Sheridan Center of Teaching and Learning, the engineering GSC, different committees that I served on, all of it felt incredibly humbling and rewarding to learn from people and help build something together. And I would be remiss not to mention how important these organizations and their spirit have been in a COVID and post-COVID world. Like many of you, no doubt, for my own part, I stayed in Providence the whole 2 years, albeit most of it cooped up in my apartment. But simply knowing that Brown was out there, knowing that I could talk to people who had built these systems, they had participated in organizations with me, talked to me about things, made it the slightest bit easier. Which I think leads us to the real overarching question. How do we take this with us? As we step from Brown into this larger world, how do we maintain our connection with what is authentic and what is weird about us? I definitely don't have all the answers, but I hope I can lead you to at least the first step. We learn to accept ourselves. Being alone in an apartment with only yourself for company is certainly not an experience many of us expected to have. Definitely not as a person on a famously friendly campus. But for my own part, having to do that made me realize how immensely important it is to like yourself. To do the work and put in the effort to be good and kind to others is important, but it is essential to love yourself first. And right now, I know each of you is thinking, yes, Vidushi, this is nothing we haven't heard before. You have to love yourself before you love others, etc., etc., etc. Sure, that might be true, but I think it is so easy to slip into cynicism about this concept that it is always worth reiterating. You always deserve to be treated as if you are extraordinary. And you came here to Brown because this university believed you to be special, a little different, and maybe a little weird. And today, as you leave it, I hope you will take with you a certainty of what Brown saw in you to begin with, that your real authentic self, the way it exists and the way it interacts with others is always enough. Thank you. And just to flesh out the sort of 10-minute version includes, I do want to talk more about the open curriculum and a lot of the things that my peers and people on campus have done. So that's going to make up the big bulk of it. So yeah, hope that helps. Thank you.
Excellent. So just like the first batch, we will, all right. Teresa will kindly escort you into our waiting room.
Mike, can you drag this table back a little bit?
That's okay, so we are going to use the same structure.
Could we have your attention, please?
That's right. So it was fun hearing from everybody. Just like the first batch, we're going to vote by hand. We have a batch of individuals who I've just launched the poll online, who should be willing, able, and ready to vote. And now in person, we are going to do the same. So again, by show of hands, we're going to go for our first speakers, the Cozy Oats.
How's it going?
Raise them high. Okay. Next, we're going to go for Juyang Bai. And then last but not least, Vidushi Shupa. Thank you. So now we are just taking a moment to tally the votes between online and in person. Okay, great, excellent. So Teresa, if you don't mind inviting the speakers back, you can announce our.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for participating in the vote. Applause for both Teresa and the nominations committee and all of the speakers who gave 6 excellent speeches today. And just a quick applause round of applause for all of you for voting, participating, showing up, thank you very much for everybody's participation, really. So thank you everyone.
Oh, sorry, can you just repeat the results for the Zoom people real quick?
Okay, so for the Zoom folks who may have missed it, our master's speaker was Amelia and our PhD speaker was Ju Yang.
All right.
Does that make sense? All right, great, cool. So thank you very much, everyone. So we had fun. We learned a lot about how to boil eggs, how to kick out a windshield. So what we're going to do now is get back on our agenda. We're going to try and move a little bit quickly, simply because that's what we do. And so we're going to go to our executive board updates. The first, is that, the first of which coming from president and vice president. So we're having a GSC sponsored, hosted incoming student housing webinar. Again, it's really difficult to find housing, period. We are going to talk about that in this meeting, in this executive board update, as well as in our open floor time. And so in order to help facilitate that, especially for incoming students who may be coming from another country entirely or another part of this country, we're going to just give a quick lowdown. It's a recorded webinar, and we're just going to talk about what it's like to find housing in Providence, in the greater Providence area. So none of you are incoming, but you are probably a departmental representative. If you would like to pass that information along to your departments and incoming students, I think it can be very impactful and really make people's lives a little bit easier. We also, every year, the GSC does not do this, but the graduate school does Research Matters. This is a really fun TED Talk kind of formatted talk. I think people have about 5 minutes to pitch why their research matters. It's an excellent way to get to know your community members, what they're thinking about, what they're working on, what they're passionate about. So I implore you to show up, participate, clap it up for the people who put in so much hard work. To boil years of effort down into 5 minutes is no joke. So to show them a little bit of love, I would encourage you to show up on April 21st from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Grant Recital Hall, which is located at 105 Benevolent Street. Our meeting minutes are very accessible on our website, as well as from your departmental representatives. So if you are having trouble finding the address for the location, please feel free to go to our website or reach out to your departmental representative for the meeting minutes. Are there any questions on those two first items? Excellent. The world is starting to open up again. I see the entirety of some people's faces here, for better or worse. This is where we're going. And so that means that the university is also opening up again. So traveling for people who need to travel for research is an opportunity again. Hopefully this will allow you to finally leave Brown, as some of our speakers had mentioned. It's fun here, but eventually you do want to leave. But in order to do your traveling, get your funding and everything, you have to sign up at Brown's Travel Safe system. What this does is it puts you in an international SOS hotline. So if anything goes awry when you're abroad doing your work, you can be accounted for. And in addition to that, it just allows you to cultivate your plans a little bit better. We've linked that Travel Safe link there. That link will redirect you to the Travel for Research web page from Brown University's graduate school with all of the pertinent information for documenting where you are in the world and how you're going to get there and how you're going to get back. So please be sure to do that. Do it promptly. No one likes waiting till the last minute and all the stress that results in. So there is more information there. As you know, a topic of all of our GSC meetings is the food program. There are hungry graduate students on Brown University's campus, which is objectively sad and outlandish with all of the resources that are provided to us. The Graduate Student Council continues to advocate for more abundant resources for graduate students to meet the needs that they have regarding food insecurity or any other insecurity in resources that are going to help you to be a full human or advance your work.
On U Funds, there is a hyperlink here. On U Funds, there is an emergency funding application. This emergency funding application is versatile. It can be used to address your food insecurity needs. The graduate school will provide you flexible meal points that we are negotiating to make them even more flexible. Looking like instead of having a meal plan, a meal point that you did not use, we are advocating to, if you can't use that meal point, it should roll over to the next day when you're hungry the next day. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about. It seems really reasonable, but sometimes the people at the top are a little bit disconnected from the people where we're at. And so that's what the GSC does on a daily basis. We try and to close that gap. So that is a little bit about what we're advocating for. I implore you, if you have any resource needs, if you are in an emergency situation, if you have an unanticipated car bill, you have to travel because someone has unfortunately passed away, you have bereavement, if anything happens to your finances that are unexpected, you can also apply through this U Funds link, which we've linked here, for emergency resources. The graduate school will, in addition to the food insecurity resources they can provide if that's your problem, they can provide short-term loans that will also help you out. So please do not hesitate to ask for help if you need help. If you are uncomfortable going to the graduate school, us as a GSC is here to support you on a daily basis. We make ourselves available, so please use that. Maria Suarez is going to be the most impactful contact point. I hate to say that because I would like to think that we are all very impactful here, but she really is the one pulling the strings behind who gets what for resources. So in addition to applying through this U Funds link, which we've linked here, please reach out directly to Maria Suarez so she is acutely aware of your acute needs. Are there any questions on the emergency resources that are available on campus? Excellent. Yeah.
So for anyone applying for any of the resources at all, and you're not sure, like, oh, is this a need that I really need? Is there someone else who needs it more? Do not think that way. Just apply. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the more we show that, number one, that the worst thing that can happen is you get rejected. Best thing that can happen is that you get it. But even in that worst case scenario, the graduate school knows that you are in need and you ask for help. When you don't ask for help, the graduate school doesn't really know you exist in that state of reaching out. So it helps us so we can tell the graduate school, hey, people, graduate students have needs. We are not just, doing perfectly all the time. And it helps them know that, hey, these are the needs that people, these are where people need. So please reach out. Please, if you have any needs, you have if you ever, I guess, good rule of thumb. If you find yourself asking yourself whether you want to pay medical bills for the day, apply.
Yeah. We have a comment from Zoom, so I'm going to go through a little dance where we prevent feedback by temporarily muting, kind of like a walkie-talkie, muting the microphone and activating the speaker. So you should be good to go in 1, 2, 3.
Hello. I just want to comment on what the last guy said, along with what the board is saying. I completely understand y'all advocating for us and trying to encourage us to use these resources. But I feel like from the last meeting we have and this one is a little bit of victim blaming, that you're blaming grad students for not using these resources, and that's making it harder for you to advocate when sometimes we just don't have the time to or not. So I feel like, yeah, we could use those resources for helping, but they maybe not be the best, or maybe that, I don't know, maybe it shouldn't be no victim blaming here, because the real issue of having this food resource program or this kind of money is that we're not paid properly. And that should be the big issue here, and not just trying to blame grad students for not using these so-called services that we use here. And I was just going to make that kind of comment. I'm not trying to blame on anybody, but we should be really careful on how we kind of advocate for these, how we encourage people to use these resources.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for that. I just did the mute switch. So if you want to talk again, just let me know in the chat and I can put you back on.
yeah. Teresa.
Hey, so first of all, great. We certainly don't want to be doing any victim blaming here. I absolutely hear what you're saying about maybe not having the time to apply for these things. What would you suggest, I guess? Like, you know, if time is an issue, that's an important thing for us to know. So what could we do to talk, like networking with the graduate school to make this less of a time issue? Because we're not in the position for advocating for wages. That is where the union comes in, but we do want to help wherever we can.
Go ahead.
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yeah, Trayshawn, if you had a couple of actionable suggestions, then please let us know your thoughts.
Sure. Well, as of now, I don't have any actionable thoughts. I feel like I don't know, I can just only speak for myself and then maybe some other people that, I don't know, just grad school, you kind of really focus on immediate things that's surrounding you. You're focused on research, you focus on this. And then there maybe are some people that use these resources and they just not enough. So I think there's a little bit more compassion on people not using these resources, but I understand again why the GSC may be pushing grad students to use them just so y'all can better advocate in that way. But just trying to change the way we send that message.
Can I just and you're completely right. There's issues with the underutilizations of these programs, and we're also on another end trying to advocate for what are some of the challenges that grad students specifically face in accessing these new points. These include things like, where are they available? Can we actually travel to these spots where these new points are available? It includes things like the variety of options that are available that might not be the best suited for people who have specific dietary restrictions, right? We're also trying to advocate for other issue areas where there's broadly maybe a broader stigma associated with utilizing these points or these resources, which are, again, there's a lot of different components of why I personally agree with you, why these are, we're not trying to say that, the underutilization of these things is entirely on the grad students. No, we are trying to make the grad school understand why them using this as the only metric to assess need is not a great idea. So this is where your input is really valuable. And I think just to clarify a little bit in terms of where the initial point was made, I think sometimes we've seen that students sometimes might feel hesitation wanting to access these points, feeling that there might be someone who has a greater need. And this is something we've seen actually reflected on the food program, for example, that we have, where people note that, if someone else is needing this, we don't want to apply for it. This is where we want to make the intervention and be like, no, it is very obviously, it's a very considerate point to be aware of, but also don't try to advocate for yourself in this position. And we are also completely understanding of the point of view that, it's not always on the grad student. There's issues with the ways these programs are made. And what we're trying to particularly do is try to come up with better options, more options that can suit different types of needs. So we really hear you on that, and would love to chat further on any more suggestions you have in wanting to improve this conversation with the grad school.
You still wanna, I think Mai also wanted to say something on that point.
Hi, Kishan, and also everyone here. You know me, but yeah, I totally feel you in terms of the food program. I mean, yeah. I was just saying, I totally feel you in terms of the food program. I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail, but I have, tried to apply myself, and yeah, it's the way that it is now is not very accessible. And I think that a lot of the discussions that we have, it definitely feels like they're telling us that we need to solve our own problems, but it's very certainly not the case. And yeah, the way that the food program is now, especially in the way that I've participated in it myself, like it's problematic. And I hope that, me potentially, trying to transmit like my own experiences with it into these discussions can really be felt and heard. So that way, the way that you feel can also be felt and heard. But as Vinesh and Alex were saying, it really helps to, try to incorporate as many points of views as possible, because I'm only like approaching this issue from like my own experiences with it. And although I do have a lot of comments on ways that it can improve, it never hurts to have more like points of views to approach the same issue. So I really appreciate you commenting that.
And just for the people in the room especially, we had a comment by Meg in the Zoom saying that perhaps sending out more emails to the general student or general grad student body outlining these programs but how to apply would help address the time issue. And I definitely think that's a great idea. We can make more frequent kind of blasts of all that information. I'm not saying we've already done it, but it's similar in a similar vein to what we did at the beginning of COVID. We made a subpage on our website for food insecurity issues generally. That kind of was the very first little ice cube with a snowball of our effort. And the graduate school actually, after we made a site like that, they themselves made a similar site. So I think having us take these suggestions and have more communication about it is definitely a great idea, and it can encourage action by the grad school itself.
Yeah.
Do you want the mic or you?
No, I'm just gonna project. Were there any other questions or comments? Oh, yeah, sorry.
I was gonna add, as far as like something actionable, I think one thing that turns me off from like filling out a long form sometimes, that does seem very long and daunting. I'll just put that off until a little bit later and then I don't do it. But I would feel supported if I perhaps knew that I could email a person and just say like, I'm interested in filling out this form. And then they can get back with like, ask it, okay, do you want to set up a time to work on that together, or providing some other kind of supports that be like, you can break it down to like an easier task to start with. So it's not this big thing as a whole, and then there's like support in that process also.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's a great idea. So what Matthew was saying, for anyone who didn't hear, just trying to like break it down into more digestible pieces, essentially making sure that people know that they could reach out to Maria Suarez, for example, saying, hey, I'm interested in, filling out this form. I have this need. And then you can work alongside Maria to, actually fill out the application and actually get the resources you need. Yeah, I think these are all excellent. Was that a fair summation of what you were saying, Matthew?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think these are all excellent points. Yeah, as I mentioned, we continue to advocate for these resources for graduate students to the point where our advocacy of letting you know what resources are available to you may actually come off as daunting to you as the recipient of that information. So I hope that we can just make clear that there are multiple access points into these resource programs, whether it's emailing Maria Suarez, as we've mentioned, whether it's filling out the U Funds application, whether it's applying directly to the Brown Market Shares program, whether it's reaching out directly to GSC president, the emails or any of the executive board emails, or just looking on our website to find more information. Really the point of bringing this up at every meeting is really just to make sure that everybody is like incredibly aware of the resources that are available to them, simply because there are people that have more power than us that don't necessarily want to make the resources available long-term. And that is just very unsettling. So, I hope that everyone is aware of those resources and we can move together forward to fill the need.
And if anyone thinks of any more things, ideas, suggestions, please email us. Yeah, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, more voices, more better, period. Great. So on that point, we're going to transition in the next kind of agenda item. The university at one point, especially amidst the murder of George Floyd and many other Black individuals in the United States, was very upset at some of the just the racism that exists in the United States and the world. And so at one point, they were thinking about, trying to implement some kind of anti-Black racism awareness grant or supplement. And that really got derailed with, COVID part 1, part 2, part 3, continued into now, and so on and so forth. So the Graduate Student Council has continued to advocate for more support for people that come from marginalized identities here at our university. And I'm really happy that this advocacy has been heard. The Anti-Black Racism Awareness Grant is now live. Again, it's also accessible via U Funds. This grant serves to bring university community members together to create innovative solutions that address anti-Black and systemic racism. There are 2 funding opportunities. It's a part 1 and a part 2. In order to be eligible for part 2, you have to first receive and produce with the money that you received from part 1. And then provided that your community building and support of marginalized identities here on campus has been successful, then you will be reconsidered for another award should you apply. So again, if this is something that is of interest to you, if supporting marginalized identities on campus is something that you see yourself doing, with you or a small group of people, you will be eligible for this grant, and I encourage you to seek out that opportunity and apply. Are there any questions regarding the Anti-Black Racism Awareness Grant that is now available on U Funds? We've hyperlinked a bit of a janky document that I put together that has all of the information, albeit not as beautifully formatted as the actual application. But to make it more accessible for people who may be application averse and want to first understand what that application is, I took all of that pertinent information out and put it in a Google document so that you can access it as simple as possible, similar to Matthew's suggestion of making things more digestible. So that is what is hyperlinked there, and the U Funds hyperlink is the actual application, should you be interested. Do you have a question? So there are two grants, and perhaps I should know, but I do not. So I'm going to have to get back to you on that information. I have an idea, but I don't want to tell you the wrong numbers. So please circle back. I should have had that prepared. Yeah. Sorry, could you say that? I heard a little bit about restricted money spending. That's a great question. I think that is going.
It's all on U Funds. It seems to be within the general guidelines of Brown. So on the U Funds, it has a general opening on a video with instructions on what to watch. Because obviously with the issues about paying what students, if international or not international faculty, comes down into tax law. So watch the videos, and I believe
Maya
Holdsmith as well, who was an exceptional member of the graduate school team, always super responsive. But hopefully it might change a lot of his contract law that's out of our purview. But just look, I've just gone on it now with full information, with all the stipulations and everything. So it's all live now, and the number of money is $250 for the application as well.
For anyone online that couldn't hear any of the question or the answer, the question was, are there stipulations regarding who you can pay, like Brown students and faculty, similar to previous funds? Joe's looked it up on the U Fund site, and those stipulations are listed, as well as the amount, which is $250.
$250 to an unspecified
amount for a larger 2,500 grants. 250 for the first, and then for that larger part, 2,500 is what it's saying on the U Funds one. The primary contact is Jonas Clark at Brown.edu, but also Maya Holdsmith is a very good person in the graduate graduate school administration point of contact.
When you move on, just don't forget to go back to the location.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I missed that. So briefly, students have been given a survey, probably from your department. I know I got mine from my department, asking where I was going to be located in particular over the summer. This is a new thing that's come to Brown University and is a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. It's simply that there have been, there's a recent acknowledgement of tax liabilities depending on where you are conducting your studies from, because some people are able to be remote. And so the university is simply trying to mitigate tax liability, which is well beyond my understanding, tax law and everything like that. But B, also just simply the university and the grad school is just very interested in understanding where their employees are located in the world. And I think most employers would be interested in that as well. So please fill those out. That's what that is. And I think it's here to stay. So I just want to make everyone aware that that's what's going on with that. Are there any questions regarding where you're located in the world? All right. So commencement is in person this year. We're really fortunate to have had our speakers in person, practice as you play kind of deal. There will be paid student helpers because this commencement will be extra large. We are inviting back the students who graduated in 2020 and were robbed of their graduation commencement ceremony. And so there will be a lot of people. There are some limitations on who can get paid from these commencement positions. This is something that is just really a legal kind of problem that Brown is always coming up against. And in particular, it excludes international stipended PhD students. Again, this probably comes down to some international tax law and how you get paid and what's allowed with your visa for payment. I'm really sorry that that is the case. I would still encourage you, should you want to try and get involved, to seek out the opportunities to get involved, because just because the university is not going to pay you does not mean that we do not want you to participate in university events. And we will continue to kind of make sure that everyone who can get paid in a timely fashion will. And so that will always be a priority for the Grad Student Council's advocacy.
It's excluding international master's students, international.
So
international PhD students, national master students are able to apply for the jobs. International PhDs can't, because this is during term time.
Okay.
During term time for international PhD students, stipend, you are not allowed to have another job on campus, but master students are.
Yeah. It's incorrect on the agenda.
We swapped it over.
I switched it on the agenda, I think, excluding international PhDs. Perhaps it didn't update.
So you made a copy for the minutes, probably before it was switched.
Yeah.
in the
Oh, I
agenda.
didn't realize. Okay, so
Sorry,
sorry
that's
for
my
that.
mistake.
Okay, cool, great. So sorry about that. But that's what's going on. There's also going to be keepsake regalia. So normally you can rent your regalia because it's really expensive, because there are 2020 grads and just a lack of every resource in the world right now. The Brown Bookstore and the university were not able to procure enough gowns and garb for all of the people who will be attending. And so what they're doing instead is they are providing keepsake regalia for approximately the same price that you would be charged to rent the full garb. This keepsake regalia is made of a slightly different material. That's how they were able to keep the cost down. And like the name suggests, you are able to keep this keepsake regalia. So, I'm sorry that you cannot rent it. I'm encouraged that you can purchase it. And I implore you to look at that. You have to order by April 14th. They do have a deadline. So if you're graduating, please get on that. And that's that. That is a great idea. We have not discussed that as a board. That's great. Thank you for your contributions, and we can take that and discuss it.
Our first line of advocacy on that topic was to bring back the rentals.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with the COVID situation there, and the fact that these contracts were negotiated like a little bit in advance, and we just got to know about all this, we wanted to push for the rentals. But I feel like definitely for the next time, I think that's a really good idea. And maybe we should think about budgeting for it earlier on in the semester, but that's a really good idea.
Just for clarity for people online that may not have heard the question was, if we considered as a GSC purchasing a variety of regalia in order to have on hand. So that's what the response is before.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, just to echo that, I think if the rental option is not something that's possible because of COVID, at least eliminating this mandate that you cannot participate unless you pay $80 for this one outfit you're gonna wear one day. That would be really great, because I know right now it's like a requirement, like if you want to participate in the main ceremony for your children, you have to buy this regalia.
So that's interesting. I thought that grad school said that was not the case this year.
Well,
Profession have to write that.
you do have to.
Okay, cool. That's
Just
interesting. Yeah.
exploring the option of not mandating.
So
And
ju-
I think that's only fair.
Just not that I agree with this, but just to give total voice to what we were told when we pushed back extensively on this in our last meeting with them. They are saying that the cost of the keepsake regalia is equivalent to a rental cost. And so they're basically saying the fabric's lower quality, so it might not be a good fit for people that are going into tenure track academia, but you get to keep it and it's the same price as the rental of the original regalia. So they think it's essentially a wash or even better than the previous option. But definitely these points are all very, definitely taken into consideration.
Is there a limit though on how many of those like cheaper gowns are available?
Well,
I
we
don't
don't.
think they're linked.
They
They
There
didn't
must be
mention.
some, we didn't like really get into that, but their assumption is that it will meet the need out there, so, yeah.
Trayshawn, we don't know if it's permanent, but we think it likely will be based on what the graduate school said. They also don't. Yep. Sorry about that. Oh, nope, that's no good. In answer to the question, is this permanent? We don't know. The graduate school deans said that they don't really know either. It kind of depends on when they being a very broad group of people, want to renew a contract, and depends on supply of the higher quality robes. The impression they had, which was communicated to us, was that it will be likely permanent going forward, and it is similar to other institutions, if I recall the meeting correctly. But this is that was an assumption that was made and passed on to us. And it seems like it's the way that a lot of places are going, not just Brown.
Great. So we're going to move on. We are low on time and we have a lot to get through. So there is a task force on doctoral education. They're assessing the quality of doctoral education. This is a mandate of the provost office, who is very much involved in academic excellence here at Brown. They will be publishing a report soon on some of their findings. They've been working for about a year, doing like one-on-one interviews with individuals in different PhD programs, and they will be compiling their results soon. So please keep an eye out for that and stay involved in that, because I think it does impact quite a few people. We also have continued to advocate for housing resources. Housing is just a horrible difficulty for some people, especially graduate students who are being underpaid and outcompeted by people who are not underpaid like us. And so as a result of some of our advocacy, the university has recently procured the River House, which has increased the number of graduate student beds in the campus area from what it was to now it increases it by 270 beds. This is a luxury apartment building. And so part of what we're advocating for is also a non-luxury apartment building for people who don't pretty much for graduate students who live a non-luxurious life. However, this is an excellent addition to the resources that are on campus. And we're going to continue to advocate for more because I think there's still need. There are other advocacy points that have been successful regarding housing, auxiliary housing units for graduate students that are a little bit more modest and a little bit more in the price range of what maybe your average graduate student may have for their housing budget. Are available. These can house about 80 to 90 graduate students, and they're spread all throughout the East Side in particular. I did not hyperlink it here. There is an auxiliary housing website that we can share, and we can update the meeting minutes with that hyperlink. And again, there's U Funds emergency resources. These are not only good for food resources and acute funding needs, but if you're having a really acute housing issue, you can apply through U Funds and they can help you find temporary housing. So please use those resources and continue to stay engaged in the housing market here in Providence so we can improve the lives of graduate students. With that, we were going to move over to the nominations chair, Teresa again.
Hey, everyone. Obviously, my big project this past month was working on the commencement speakers, but the other thing that's been going on is we have selected recipients for the Bates Clapp and Wilson Du Bois Awards. So as you may recall from previous meetings, these awards are given out for people who have had a tremendous impact on the lives of master's students in the case of the Bates Clapp Award and doctoral students in the case of the Wilson Du Bois Award. And I'm happy to announce the winners. So for the Bates Clapp Award, we have decided to honor Dr. Sophie Abramowitz, who is a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of American Studies. Her nominations demonstrated that she has gone far above and beyond career expectations in advocating for her students and in supporting them outside the classroom. For the Wilson Du Bois Award, the committee selected Lorraine Mazza, who was a manager of graduate studies in the English department. She retired this past December after 44 years in the department, and many, many fond memories of her kindness and warmth were shared in the nominations. So congratulations to both of them.
With that, we're going to move over to the finance chair, Joe Collishaw.
Everyone's favorite part of the evening, Treasury Corner. So we've still got the conference fund is closed and has been closed for a month. However, internal event funding still remains open for $350 to up to $400 per event. That is purely on any graduate student that is doing something that benefits the campus, benefits the community at all. Please apply via that link. We also have recognized group funding, so that's any interest group, affinity group, group of the graduate students that is recognized with the GST. That is literally all it takes. We will then help you with your SAO account. You can get up to $500 per semester. The next thing, stipends are changing for the better. Thank you, Glow. They've done an absolutely crack corker of a job. There's going to be pay parity for humanities and social sciences, which takes effect June 1st. It's a bit confusing because Brown's financial year starts in July. So on this board there, it's 2,457. That's what the expected amount should be in June, as opposed to the 1,200 we used to get in the humanities. Great. It should then go up to 3,500, totaling up to just over 7,000 in total between July and August. And then obviously it depends on where you are in the world and what's happening there. So that's why it doesn't look like a huge increase until July. It's because Brown's fiscal year starts in July. However, thank you all Glow reps, they've done an absolutely brilliant job. It's starting all on July 1st, and that's what it's going to go through. So any questions about this? This is just information the grad school to relay to us. To find details, email your Glow representative or the leadership of Glow, because they have done a very, very good job. And of course, we're very grateful. The next thing is I am putting a vote to you all now. Is the first meeting we had at the beginning of the semester, we explained how we were making sure we matched everybody in the food insecurity program that the GSC has run, and we voted to increase it to $10,000. That full $10,000 has been used, and that will be exhausted by the end of the semester. However, summer is still here. People still need to eat. We have got enough money in the budget and in our savings to make sure that we can extend it this summer again. I do put there's no caveat on this. Everyone is going to be included who applies. Therefore, I'm asking for a formal vote from the entire GSC elected body to release $10,000 from our savings to make sure that the food insecurity program can run until September. And I have to ask for a vote.
Yeah. Yes. Give me one
I'm
second.
in the Russian department. I'm not good with that.
So for people online, a last minute poll is being configured versus the hand raising system we've normally done, just so you know.
Does anyone have any questions about the summit funding of this, and what it means for our finances or our economic position as an organization? I do highlight that we are in a good physical fitness to asset.
Ballpark, rough numbers, order of magnitude, whatever. What will we be at if
At the moment, we're running a working budget of 50,000 out of the 88 used. So we've got 30,000 left to play with by the end of the semester. We've got 2 socials coming up, so that should hope to get rid of that. We should have about 235,000, 225,000 left in our savings already. So we're in a financial position that this is not an issue. And as I said already at the beginning of the semester, we're trying to work out a long-term financial situation for this, which I'm going to make sure I will do by the time that I've done.
So the $10,000 will be coming from the savings, is that correct?
Yes, just savings. So
So
it's money that we
not-
wouldn't touch either way, unless it was for something unneeded. So there's no issue in it as far as I'm concerned.
So again, departmental representatives are the eligible voters for this. We are voting on funding a summer food program for the food insecure graduate students who will be here in the summertime. And we're proposing a $10,000 contribution from the Graduate Student Council to keep this program running through the summertime. This will be coming from our savings account. We are going to launch a poll online, which is now live, and we would like all attendees that are eligible to vote, please vote. So all in favor of contributing $10,000 of GSC savings money to this program, please raise your hands high. Thank you. All opposed to contributing $10,000 of GSC savings money to this program, please raise your hand high. Are there any abstentions? Okay. So it is overwhelmingly a yes. So thank you very much for continuing this program and the GSC's opportunity to support it and your fellow graduate students.
Are there any questions in general about applications for financing options from the GSC? Anything about the finances at all that there was questions over? September. Yeah, so the difficulty with that is that we've always done like a 6-week, 7-week application process, because unlike the GS graduate school, we don't have unlimited, but don't have a large pot of funds. Like we take 20% and that's 15 grand. And then so with like the 80 applications that come through, that is my team of 4 people sifting through and having to meet and go through it. So it's something that I have been thinking on, because like, you know, especially the longer the semesters and everything, I'm going to look into my own remit with it and talk to the finance committee. However, with the graduate school, there is the $650 that's there. If that's exhausted, it is always recommended to talk to your DGS. Always recommended as well to sit there and lay it on thick. Like, because it's like 650 is not enough. Like, it's not. Lay it on thick. And if there's ever any questions, please email, because like there's ways to get around it. But there's that. Then there's also, if it's international as well, there is the International Travel Fund as well. You can also theoretically apply to PGAP if this is eating into yours, and it's like absolutely massive. We have to put pressure onto it, and obviously this is sort of the tail end of the panna cotta, that people have just sat there and everything's been online, but now conferences are coming back into person. All the costs are up, flights are up, food's up, hotels are up. We can't afford it. So we're trying, but it's also about like equity as well for like people that have signed up for the finance committee. Mr. Professor Tuller.
I do think it's worth doing this, perhaps because the last year and a half we haven't been spending any money for very little money. Perhaps reopen it. I think because of like a lot of conferences kind of waiting to actually announce their application process. using some funds perhaps from year to fund some of these. Didn't actually have that.
Yeah, and I think we'll bring it up to the next exec because like it's also, we've funded 65 people, no, 67 people this semester, which came to a grand total of 13,000 out of 15. Last semester was 58 people, which came to 12,500 out of 15. So we are hitting targets in terms of, it's not like 10 people, but this comes into a larger systemic issue in terms of if you get like, a lot of like the humanitarian conferences like announced a month beforehand. So it's, I'm going to talk to the exec in terms of if we can change the remit of it and do it 2-month one, twice a semester application. But then the difficulty with that is like doing it once a semester is a lot of work. Putting it on twice, people might go to my committee.
Don't get me wrong, I used to be in a con. It's a lot of work, but I think there could be things.
Exactly, it's about impact imperative. Yes, we're going to discuss it as a group. I've already messaged Abdullah today about it. It's on my mind, so I will try.
There's a question in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, over the summer as well, there's the matching from the graduate school and us going, at the moment, we've gone to the full 10,000 the semester. We don't know numbers for summer because it's the first normal summer, but still having that 10 grand and being able to go there and if necessary over, then we might do an extraordinary vote, who knows. But it just basically means that we're in a bargaining position that the grad school can't walk away from it. So that's why we've done it now, so that the lovely VP and P can go, we're ready, money's where our mouth is, invoice us. So we're trying to make sure what we're doing. And if you look at the broader conversation of food, this is at the forefront at the moment, because we're trying to make sure by September we've got like an actual structure for a long-term goal.
So with that, we're going to move on to the communications chair, Mai.
Let me get you the mic as well.
Hi, I don't know if you guys remember in the past, we've spoken,
A little bit closer.
we've spoken about potentially like moving to having the distribution of hygiene products in all the bathrooms at Brown. So technically, Brown is supposed to stock all bathrooms on campus, both male and female bathrooms or non-gendered bathrooms with hygiene products, but that hasn't been the case. And apparently there's this form that you have to fill out online in order for them to stock your bathroom, but a lot of the time it doesn't mean that they'll continuously and consistently stock your bathroom. So I just wanted to put it out there that this is still on our radar and that we are going to be having discussions also with the undergraduate council of students, because this affects them as well, to potentially get that going and get that started. And also just as like a small tidbit in relation to the food insecurity program, if anyone has any questions about how to work with the very little that we have in terms of feeding yourself and other people that you need to care for, please feel free to reach out to me if you want to know about how I have dealt with the EGAP funding as well as like the other food insecurity programs here on campus. So thank you.
Question?
Yeah, so there's a form online. I have the link to it, but I have to kind of sift through my emails a little bit to find it. But yeah, it's not a very, as you can tell, it's not a very easy link to look for or find. And also, just because you fill out the form once doesn't mean that they're going to continuously or consistently stock your bathroom. They'll likely stock it once and then kind of forget about you for the rest of their life. So
can we include the form in the minutes?
Yeah, I'll definitely hyperlink the form in the minutes so that if you guys are interested in filling out the form, that they'll start trying to include your bathroom in it. Yeah.
So with that, we're going to move over to Jordan, our social chair, to give you some highlights on what's to come.
Would you like the microphone? You're good.
I'll use this.
Thanks so much.
No problem. Hold on. Get you some slack. Okay.
So So we had a really successful trivia night 2 weeks ago from today. Don't know who came attending this group exactly, but there were some people who came. We had a great trivia night. We gave out a laser tag set. Well, I think more than one laser tag set, if I'm correct. And telescopes. So it was fun, a lot of fun. And what? So effectively, we're gonna have another one. We thought that the next one was gonna be on April 20th, and then we realized that that's a holiday of sorts. So, so that isn't gonna be today.
Like 420.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had no idea, I swear.
Details for the trivia night will be coming soon.
Yes, I shall be
What about
coming
our
soon.
spring formal?
Yes, so our spring formal will be on May 6th. That will be in Sales Hall, same place that we had it the one back then. That is in the works. So there's been some issues on the back end, at least since I've passed. So keep watching this document. There will be details incoming, and you're also going to get spammed on your inboxes. And yeah, and also I'll be graduating in May. Pretty confident. Thank you. So I just wanted to reiterate the benefits of being inside this position so that someone can take my place.
I think we're gonna do that at the end. If you don't mind.
perfect.
Just-
No worries.
So we are cutting it close on time, so I apologize. We had some technical difficulties and some longevity, verboseness. So if you would be so kind to just hang out for an extra 5-10 minutes max. We're going to not do elections at the end of this at all. We will be doing election announcements, however, just letting people know what positions are opening up because people will be graduating. So that's to come. Student life, unfortunately, is not here at. Go for it.
Yeah, our student life chair is out sick tonight. He let me know the big update is the STEAM room, which is the STEM themed art exhibition that our student life chair is currently promoting. The date has been moved. It is now May 7th. They are still accepting art submissions. We need to generate a new link for that. That's going to wind up in the minutes eventually once the student life chair is no longer sick. So stay tuned.
Sid with the Masters.
Yeah, guys, there's a game night we're doing tomorrow. I think it's good.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
project. Go for it.
So tomorrow, 7 to 9 at the graduate student launch, free pizza and beer. Also no PhD students around.
All right. Tech.
Holy cow. It's me already, okay. Yes, I just wanted to very quickly go over some of the advocacy updates. Stuff has been bumped to the people who are in charge of trying to get them done. So when it comes to transportation, things like the parking prices, we all know that they're too high. The graduate school now knows this and knows that a lot of schools charge less, especially graduate students and commuter students. So hopefully there is some work being done to reevaluate those prices. Web hosting for recognized student groups has been bumped to the person at IT, or actually university policy, I believe now, who determines what the web hosting that they use. There's a Campus Press website, which is WordPress for schools. The person in charge of policy for that is going to be looking through my proposal and seeing if they can accommodate student groups in addition to like faculty and staff web pages. Fitness facilities, we recently brought this up again. There are some access issues. The graduate school website says we can access satellite fitness facilities like the one at the top of the staircase that is sealed shut and we can't access. In addition to other ones that some of you might not even know actually existed. Oh, sorry, I realized this is still open. There we go. So that has also been raised to the attention of the graduate school. Hopefully they will be actually improving access instead of just changing the website. We'll see, keep your eyes on it. And I am on very, very bittersweet news, preparing to defend my thesis this year. So I will be leaving the position, but I'll save the sales pitch for when we go through in order for our thing.
Yeah, that's the next thing, so might as well pitch away.
Okay, so I'll jump over Master's Advocacy to basically pitch the technology chair position. And anything I say, please feel free to reach out to me over email. I'm happy to talk at length or Zoom about it. When I first took on this role in 2020, very early 2020, The technology chair position basically consisted of broadcasting the agenda onto the screen like this and approving listserv posts. And there's still a lot of both of that, though those still both happen. But very quickly in 2020, things changed dramatically. And we had to at first switch entirely online and find a way to keep our advocacy and communication and resource provision going. So all those virtual events and calendars and website pages, it suddenly became much more actively maintained instead of once in a while. And as we move back to a hybrid model, as you can see from today's meeting, there's always a fun challenge there. So thank you for holding and bearing with me for the people in the room and the people online. And it looks like, we are continuing the hybrid model for right now. We polled the reps recently and about 90% wanted hybrid or virtual to be an option available in the future. So, it's something that people definitely want. We have good turnout. We right now have about 15, 16 people online, but we think we had a peak of 30 online. So it's pretty even in the room and online in terms of the actual full turnout. So definitely, we want to make sure your voices are heard, especially people that may not be able to be here. The GSC represents everybody, not just the people in this room, as much as we love you all in this room. So we want to make sure that we're able to speak for you and hear your voices. So yeah, anyone that wants to use technology to facilitate equitable access to our resources and meetings, please think about running for this position. There's a lot of exciting stuff to do, a lot of good suggestions. We can improve our processes. Hopefully, we'll improve this lounge space. In addition to the audiovisual issues, it turns out it is actually not super accessible in a lot of different ways. We don't actually meet the SAO office's guidelines for that, so that's fun. But we would like to push for lots of tech improvements. And also make sure when you join a role on the GSC, you can push your own advocacy efforts into the conversation. Technology is encompassing maybe of things like cars and buses when it comes to advocacy, but fitness, a little bit borderline, but they still let me talk about it. So I appreciate that. And yeah, please feel free to reach out. You don't have to be a computer programmer. You don't have to be a total tech nerd. You just have to be enthusiastic about using technology to improve the graduate student experience and the council. So please talk to me and we'll make it happen. Thank you.
What is your email address so people could reach out? Should that be?
Sure, it is gsc_tech@brown.edu. And all that information is available on our website, which is sites.brown.edu/GSC. Or if you have the bookmark for the old site, students.brown.edu/GSC, it redirects automatically.
It's also the first Google result when you search Brown Grad Student Council.
Yes, now it is the first Google result for Brown Student Council. Thanks to somebody pointing that out, that it was not initially. I work with IT and we fixed that.
Yay, the SEO optimization, or SEO.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
So SEO optimization, that's it. So Sid, I think you can go without the mic, or do you want the mic? Yeah. So next is Masters Advocacy. Again, we're not voting. We are just pitching the positions, showing you what they're like, and you can think about it for elections in our next meeting.
Masters Advocacy, guys, is pretty much the experience you feel as a master's student at Brown and what you feel can be improved about it. I mean, obviously there are a lot of things we can still work to improve as an experience for master's students and graduate students. Another good thing about this position is you kind of dictate your own responsibilities. It's like you come in, you see what you can improve, and you work on that. You get to have meetings with the deans of SPS, the Dean of Student Affairs, Academics, and the Dean of Graduate School. You get to advocate with them. That's the good thing about it. So your voice is heard. Along with that, you're responsible for organizing events, specifically for master students. And that's it. You also get a committee, 6-7 members to work with you. So that's nice. Yeah.
And Jordan with the social chair.
Hey guys.
What's that?
So hey guys. So the social chair has a lot of interesting aspects to it. A lot of them positive, some not as much, but mostly a positive job, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's interested in Anyone who's- Anyone who's interested in teamwork, anyone who's interested in having an amazing team, we have Remy and Olivia back there, 2 members of the team. Mel and Tariq, I think they're online. But you know, we have an amazing team. We get to do a lot of teamwork. We get to make social events. And there is a lot of opportunity where this, you know, where this social events thing can become a far more generalized post. You know, at least historically, it's been a post that's kind of just like making, you know, social events, which is amazing, by the way, and demonstrates a need for its own post in itself. You know, but you can expand it in something that, you know, if you're really passionate about making the graduate experience a social one, not just one where, you know, you're in a cubicle, you can expand this post. And, you know, there's been a lot of work to think about saying like, well, perhaps, you know, we can, you know, have more graduate clubs. We can promote more of those clubs and create the social events chair to be a coordinating post just as much as an organizing post. And one more thing, if you're passionate about drink tickets, this is the job.
Here's the question.
Question?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, speaking of teamwork, what if there's 2 people who are very passionate about like social care together?
That is a great question.
So the answer is no to that. It is a single person chair, but the perk of being the social chair is having that committee, as Jordan just mentioned. And so what you can do is really practice your skills in delegation and have a second, third, fourth, or 10th person really support you in your role. So please don't let the 1 person per role rule kind of discourage you and really lean into the whole committee aspect. Yeah.
What if you wanted to change the bylaws to allow this position to happen?
Oh, so we could change the bylaws to allow more than 1 person run for any particular position. So we could consider the amendment of our bylaws and the subsequent votes on those amendments should there be a strong drive to expand positions from 1 person per position to 2 people per position, which we can happily discuss in our next executive board meeting to see what that looks like and what that entails. As it stands now, it's a 1 person per position role with a committee optional. Yeah. Is that clear and fair as it is right now? All right. Democracy. Okay, so with that, I really appreciate everyone's patience with what? Oh, cool. Yeah, I was like, what? Do we have more? So everyone's patience with the tech. Oh, sorry. We have a quick open floor. Can you be really quick with your open floor? I'm super sorry that, yes. So,
I will make sure we revisit it if you don't have enough time.
yes.
The document that I sent. will
Yes.
be reached out to that.
Yes, so we can link documents, links, and everything in our meeting minutes.
Can you hear me? All right, all the action items I'm going to talk about and Gabe here is going to talk about too are going to be available on the meeting notes later. But I just want to take a moment and highlight that Providence, Rhode Island, obviously the greater US and world is facing an affordable housing shortage. At the end of the month, there are about 400 and 500 people that are going to be displaced due to shelter closings and the expiration of 3 hotel room vouchers. So I'm aware that a systematic issue like this is something that's outside of the graduate student realm, but the affordable housing shortage is something that affects many of the grassroots organizations, community members that we interact with as graduate students, either directly or indirectly in our studies, our volunteering, and just interactions in the community in general. And certainly Brown's presence in the community doesn't help with the housing shortage or the cost. So I think it's important that regardless of what collective action or if GSC decides to take any collective action on this, I want to highlight individual action items that can be taken. There's a petition by the Rhode Island Homeless Advocacy Project that is currently out and linked on the Scotch. And their meetings are every Friday. Information on how to attend those is there. And then I also want to let Gabe here give a breakdown of the Coalition for University Accountability.
Hello, I'm Gabe. I'm actually an undergrad. I'm a senior. I am involved with sort of a newly formed coalition called, I should say, called the Coalition for University Accountability. So Brown and other large nonprofits in Providence don't pay property taxes currently. They pay these things called pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. And the problem is that they're sitting on, if they were taxed proportionally to the value of the property, they'd be paying $49 million of tax a year. Instead, they pay usually about $5 or $6 million in these pilot payments. And we think that this contributes to a lot of, I mean, it's tax inequity because, for example, like I grew up here, and for example, my parents pay the full value of their property tax on their home, but on our home, but Brown, which is like this like enormous, essentially hedge fund, does not pay property taxes. So tomorrow we're having, we're supporting legislation at the State House that would enable the city to tax Brown no more and no less than anyone else. And Brown and other large nonprofits like large nonprofit hospitals and other universities. So tomorrow we're having a press conference at the State House with some legislators and some other people that are part of the coalition about this. We're also going to talk about, and we also talk about the university's history of displacement, which not a lot of people know about, but in Fox Point, which is where we are right here, the university has contributed to a lot of gentrification, displacement of a historically like really thriving Cape Verdean community and Portuguese community, among other gentrification that's happening, in Mount Hope right now in the Driller District. And so Brown, of course, contributes a ton to the community in a good way, but also is responsible for a lot of exploitation. So that's what this is about. But I guess the information will be going out. And I guess, is my contact info on there? Yeah, so my contact info is on there. Definitely like spread the word. It's tomorrow at 3 at the State House. So yeah, hope to see you there.
So, so the GSC continues to advocate for housing resources. I think there's an even greater issue that's been highlighted in the Greater Providence and Rhode Island community, and we hope to continue to stay involved in trying to make this state better for all who live here. And so with that, we are going to close the meeting. I really want to show a little bit of gratitude for your persistence in staying 10 minutes over, and all in favor of closing this meeting, please say aye. Please. All in favor, say no, nay, but maybe don't. And abstentions. One abstention. We are adjourned. Thank you again for showing up. Grab some pizza on your way out. Grab some drink on your way out.
We'd love to stack a chair or two, if possible.
Stack a chair, stack two if you're feeling fit.
Also, be sure to fill out the attendance form that I sent out to all the reps, okay? Please be sure to fill it out. Also, people online too. Thank you.